an ode to the heavenliness of bread. Let there be bread. The limpa from Scandinavia, the ciabatta, and the michetta from Italia, also known as rosetta. The mantou from China, the molette from sunny Spain, the arepa from South America, the babka from Poland, the barabrith from Wales, speckled with raisins, currants, and candied peel, the Russian borodinsky, the Afghani bolani, the French brioche, boules, and iconic baguettes, the Mexican tortilla, hola and ole, the Swiss colemus, England's Dickensian crumpets, muffins, and scones warm from the oven, with or without clotted cream, Iran's lavash and Iraq's samoon, New York City's famed bagels, Germany's zerlecke, pretzels, India's chapatis, parathas, uttapams. From the seeded, carawayed, poppied, or sesamied, raisined, sunflowered, to the toasted, to a golden turn, with butter, honey, or homemade jam. I could go on. A world of bread to fill our senses, fill our bellies and memories, raise our spirits like beautifully rising dough. The rising joy. Welcome to the latest floating poetry broadcast, and thank you for leaning in to show 203, coming to you live from New England, from the yeasty coast of Rhode Island. This is your poet, illuminator, and guiding spirit in the poetosphere, Colin Goedecke, a voice here and elsewhere for living our days more fully, more alively, more poetically. Last week's broadcast, if you were not listening, was the stories we tell ourselves, about our lives. Storifying that comes naturally, though sometimes overlays or obscures our essential nature, our essence, our simple beingness, or the essence of others, and how we could do well, at times, to see such stories as what they are, outer wrappings, and learn to discern the difference, the distinction between those narratives and who we really are. All this, and also looking at the stories that do support us, inspire us, give us a sense of meaning, of purpose, of promise. Well, as you may know, I love to create freshly and eclectically and explore a diversity of subjects, paths, possibilities, as with these broadcasts, from the light to the serious to the provocative, evocative, and mysterious. Well, this week, it's about something that belongs to all of history, every culture, most lives, certainly everyone's consciousness or some part of their and your awareness or experience. Bread, the staff of life, and what we cast on life's waters, how some of us use it also to refer to what we earn. Likewise, the loaves and fishes of abundance the world sometimes brings us, feeds us, nourishes our beings beyond the corporeal. Yes, so the chosen title of this broadcast, Calling All Bread Lovers, present, past, and future. If you're tuning in, that likely means you. Taking us here for a while on a well-breaded journey into different dimensions of and reflections on and feelings about bread. Even an ode or two, or one more from the first one I just shared of mine, in its literal and metaphorical guises, including makers and bakeries, eating and eaters, sharers, feasters, and songwriters, Shakespeare among them. Toast with butter and jam, and wheatfields the color of fawn included. I've carefully and joyfully kneaded, floured, proofed, and baked a show of cultural commentary, poetry, quotes, anecdotes, and inquiry around this theme, which we'll partake of together, including a few slices of sharings from various listeners, followers, and friends I invited thoughts and experiences from beforehand. So, let's make our way and follow some of the many breadcrumbs I've laid out for the occasion. From Old Amsterdam, the Netherlands, November 2001. Zonnebrot, sunflower bread. If we eat this bread, will our bodies shine? From the countryside, one summer, years back, 2016, picnic in the air, where gravity is suspended by late afternoon, leaving you free to picnic or frolic past sunset, moonset, at any altitude you desire, on deep cushions of air. Round an awning-striped tablecloth spread weightlessly, elegantly, with cold, blushing bottles of wine, hard and soft cheeses, cow and goat from France and Spain, wildly crusty loaves of bread, whose crumbs drift off here and there on the breeze to feed peckish passing birds. Wrinkled olives, ripe berries, sparkling water, bubbling laughter, and languid pleasure over the floating feast. Picnic in the air. Paul Violi has this. Counterman. What'll it be? Roast beef on rye with tomato and mayo. What do you want on it? A swipe of mayo. Pepper but no salt. You got it. Roast beef on rye. You want lettuce on that? No, just tomato and mayo. Tomato and mayo, you got it. Salt and pepper? No salt, just a little pepper. You got it. No salt. You want tomato? Yes, tomato. No lettuce. No lettuce, you got it. No salt, right? Right, no salt. You got it? Pickle. No pickle, just tomato and mayo and pepper. Pepper. Yes, a little pepper. Right, a little pepper. No pickle. Right, no pickle. You got it. Next. Roast beef on whole wheat, please, with lettuce, mayonnaise, and a center slice of beefsteak tomato. The lettuce splayed, if you will, in a Beaux-Arts derivative of classic acanthus, and the roast beef thinly sliced, folded in a multi-foil arrangement that eschews Bragdonian pretensions or any idea of divine geometric projection for that matter, but simply provides a setting for the tomato to form a medallion with a dab of mayonnaise as a fleuron. And, as eclectic as this may sound, if the mayonnaise can also be applied along the crust in a Vitruvian scroll and as a festoon below the medallion, that would be swell. You mean like the Cathedral Saint-Pierre in Geneva? Yes, but the swag more like the one below the rosette at the Royal Palace in Amsterdam. You got it. Next. Paul Violi, thank you. That's great fun. Counterman. New to me. Not him, but that. Yeah. Next time you order a sandwich, you think about that fellow. Sarah Rees, R-I-E-S, or Rise. Fish fry daughter. Holiday Inn kitchen, the day I am born. My father is frying fish for a party of 17 when the call comes from the hospital. He stays until the batter is crispy, cold salad scooped on platters, rye bread buttered. Dad never told me this story. He told my boyfriend one short order cook to another. Mom doesn't know why Dad was late for her screams and sweat on the hospital bed. Once when she was angry with him, she told me, when your father finally got there, the nurse had to tell him to get upstairs. Your wife is having that baby now. I hope that when Dad first held me, it was with haddock-scented hands, apron over his black pants still sprinkled with flour, forehead oily from standing over the deep fryer, telling the fish to hurry, hurry. That's great. Thank you. Fish fry daughter. Thank you, Sarah Rise. From her book, Come In, We're Open. All right, some quotes I fished up for us. Mahatma Gandhi. There are people in the world so hungry that God cannot appear to them except in the form of bread. Miguel de Cervantes. All sorrows are less with bread. Julia Child. How can a nation be called great if its bread tastes like Kleenex? How can a nation be called great if its bread tastes like Kleenex? That's a good question. The great M.F.K. Fisher, food writer, The Art of Eating, classic. The smell of good bread baking, like the sound of lightly flowing water, is indescribable in its evocation of innocence and delight. Bread making is one of those almost hypnotic businesses, like a dance from some ancient ceremony. It leaves you filled with one of the world's sweetest smells. There is no chiropractic treatment, no yoga exercise, no hour of meditation in a music-throbbing chapel that will leave you emptier of bad thoughts than this homely ceremony of making bread. And of course, I had to include Omar Khayyam from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Here with a loaf of bread beneath the bough, a flask of wine, a book of verse, and thou beside me singing in the wilderness. From James Kingsland's book, Siddhartha's Brain, How to Eat Bread, in parens, Toast, Guided Meditation, Mindful Toast. The overarching objective of all mindfulness meditation is to learn the skill of paying attention to what is happening right here and now, to be fully present during everyday experiences, and extract yourself from the dreamlike stream of cogitation. Toast a piece of bread, and, as it's cooking, savor the distinctive aroma of white or brown, ready sliced or crusty, seeded or unseeded. Note any happy mental associations that arise. Spread the toast with butter, marmalade, or whatever takes your fancy, listening to the rasp of the knife and appraising the texture of the toasted bread as you do so. Notice and accept any frustrations as they arise in your mind. When the toast is ready to eat, look at it as if you had never seen a piece of toast before. Sniff the toast and marmalade. Take a bite. Observe how the jaws, tongue, and salivary glands immediately go to work of their own accord. Try all the fully automated movements of the tongue, jaws, and lips as you chew and finally swallow. Notice the unfolding of all these behaviors as they happen, the almost unstoppable motivation to take another bite, and then another. All your impressions are valid, both the positive and negative. You may discover that you're enjoying the toast a whole lot more than if you just wolfed it down without thinking. Accept it all with equanimity. This is simply how the toast is. Thank you, James Kingsland, for that. Well, here's something I wrote back in Cobble Hill, Brooklyn, May of 2016. I was doing a poet in residency there, and there was this wonderful bakery. Also, there was one in New York that I knew. Maison Kaiser. I don't think it's there anymore or open. Any of them are open. This is for that bakery. Heavenly leavening is definitely involved, imbued directly and incantationally by the Maison K bakers, as every mouthful of baguette, every morsel of golden wand, toasted or still providentially warm from the hearth, Frenchly buttered, olive-oiled, or bufala mozzarella'd, is an eye-closing experience, from glorious in excelsis crust to yeastful ambrosial epicenter. Well, I can still taste that bread, that heavenly leavening. And where would bread be, at least sometimes, without butter? One of my many memories of being a young and thereafter butterphile, I suppose we could say, was as a kid with my parents at a fancy restaurant, going crazy for the warm dinner rolls and the tiles of delicious hotel butter, and dousing the baked potatoes with it too. Yeah, there's a French unsalted butter from the Camargue from France that I love. I haven't had that in a while. Used to put that on crusty baguettes. Yes. Well, here's Connie Wanak's, W-A-N-E-K, her poem, Butter. Butter, like love, seems common enough, yet has so many imitators. I held a brick of it, heavy and cool, and glimpsed what seemed like skin beneath a corner of its wrap. The décolletage revealed a most attractive fat, and most refined. Not milk, not cream, not even crème de la crème. It was a delicacy which assured me that bliss follows agitation, that even pastured daisies Through the alchemy of 4 stomachs may grace a king's table. We have a yellow bowl near the toaster where summer's butter grows soft and sentimental. We love it better for its weeping, its nostalgia for buckets and churns and deep stone wells, for the press of a wooden butter mold shaped like a swollen heart. Butter. Thank you, Colin Goedecke. Baker Karen Mann, M-A-N, from her bread.blog. Bread baking can be a multi-day process, providing opportunities for moments of slowing down time, the mindfulness that brings forth a loaf or pastry that connects us more deeply. Preparing something that comes from the land teaches us the lessons of Ayni, A-Y-N-I. Thank you, Karen. Morristown, New Jersey, January 2017. The Muffin Eaters. This is one of mine about my some time with my brother and his wife. Big-time muffin eaters, especially on Sundays. The Muffin Eaters. Sunday morning, the aroma of oven-warm dough rising through the house. A faithful ritual of an older brother and his 30-year partner, surely connecting him, cozying him back to our childhood, happily halving and toasting, generously buttering and savoring years of English muffins in our Wellington kitchen. Maybe something, too, of the yeasty Anglo genes in our brotherly bodies. An insatiable, residual Dickensian appetite for pillowy hot muffins and crumpets, clotted cream-slathered scones, and over-marmaladed triangles of ever-heavenly toasted bread. Love out to the brother and Chris and Nancy. How about Joseph Stroud? He has a wildly potent poem and moment, like a wildly alive still life. It's called Feral. The plaza of the gypsies under the ruined castle. A spring pouring into a stone basin where burros and horses drink, since before the time of Cervantes. A taverna. Fierce sunlight at noon. The plaza empty. Absolute stillness. Even the cicadas stunned by the heat. A plate of olives, goat cheese, cucumber. Cobblestones. Whitewashed walls. A day like marble. Solstice. Crushed rosemary. Holding on with everything I have. Wheatfields the color of fawn. Bread. Black figs. Gripping hard with mind and heart clenching, holding on to what's human. This moment. This place where I make my strict joy. Thank you, Joseph Stroud, from his collection, fantastic collection, Out of This World, which it is. Cheryl Pearson, Blue Hour. Up before the hens, my daughter, just her and the cows in the blue hour. Them tugged of milk weight and loose to steam like warm loaves in the cold air. Her in an apron, hair pulled into a bun. I know how she works. The way she takes the dough's wet slack, punches it down into flour, the pale curves her knuckles make, like the hollows left by sleeping deer. The future is yellow. The first finger of light on the land, the smear of butter on the heel of bread. But not for ours. First the farmers, the bakers. The definite moon turning sheer. Blue Hour, Cheryl Pearson, very, very lovely. New to her and it to me, maybe to you. Well, I do have questions. I have questions for you, now or former or future bread lovers. What comes first to mind when you think of bread? Or take in the aroma of it freshly baked or baking? Maybe a strong sense memory from childhood. What's your great favorite type or form of bread to make or eat? Sourdough to rye to cornbread, flatbread, banana bread, buttermilk biscuits, naan, crepes, croissants, sandwiches, or other of the world's breads. And what's the very best part for you of baking or eating it? Are you not just a bread lover, but also a toast lover, toastophile, or a former one, a toastarian maybe, we could call you, or me, I'm definitely a toastarian, a tostino maybe, or a tostina. And is butter often involved, or olive oil, or cheese, or some other accompaniment? If so, what kind and why? Why that choice? And what about preferred softness or chewiness, crustiness, or seededness? Who do you delight in breaking bread with? What in your life do you consider, quote, the greatest thing since sliced bread or since buttered toast? Love that expression. Grew up with that. Do you have a beloved bakery or baker or bakery story from the present or past, near or far flung? How do you earn your daily bread? What bread are you casting on life's waters? Could the hungriest in our world use the appearance of loaves and fishes? Or the bread, the sustenance of a kind word, a kind gesture, a helping hand? I think so. Well, here's some of the replies I got back. This is from Dick in Fort Worth, Texas. When my kids were growing up, I bought a book about bread making. For a few years, we made several loaves every other week. Between rye and whole wheat, we enjoyed the process, the aroma, and the joy of spreading butter on fresh-baked bread as our just reward. It almost became a ritual as well as a special treat. Thank you, Dick. I have memories like that. And here's Paul weighing in from Cape May, New Jersey. Good morning, Colin. I'm sorry I don't have a blockbuster story on bread, except I was always fascinated by pumpernickel bread. I Googled it and was surprised by its wording. I will tell you it should not be aired. I think he means aired to us over the air wave. It comes from etymology of devil's flatulence. As Miss Manners would say, dear gentle readers, we don't say fart. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. That's amusing. All right, we didn't air the other part of it, which you didn't send me anyway. All right, and one more thing, because it's a few minutes long. Here's a clip from a conversation I had with Chloe in the Cotswolds in England today about her experience of buttered toast, let's say, in India back in when she was in her 30s, when she lived there for some years, and afterward went back to India. Let me play that for you. I think it's delightful, and it should be a nice surprise for her. Maybe she could, since the show is calling all bread lovers. I said, if she would talk to me again about the buttered toast, because I love, that story is that anecdote is so wonderful. You have to tell it to me again, so I can share that.
I mean, I'm just trying to think how it shows up. I mean, it's just like, so I'm going to India to see Punjaji, or I'm because I'm just exploring India like crazy.
Decades back. This is decades back.
Yeah, and it just basically, you find yourself in a little cafe, and they're making the chai, and you've got all of that going on, and then you've got what blew my mind was seeing how they made chai, because they have one cup with really black tea with milk with sugar, like serious sugar, like white refined sugar, right? Absolutely fantastic. Only in India can I drink this, and it's and I feel $1 million. It's just so big. But the reason why that happens is because what they do is they have these two cups. They have an empty cup, a full cup, and then with the cup that's got the chai in, they pour it into the other one, and then they go like this. So they're just making lots and lots of bubbles. So they create their own kind of cappuccino kind of effect. And so the kind of this extraordinary thing goes on. It's like elastic, you're like watching this elastic tea sort of just do the, and then they give it to you see, and then you drink it, and it's like the elixir of the gods.
Oh, and what about the toast?
Well, then they look at you, see, because then they know they've got you, right? And so they go, would you like some butter toast with your chai? See? But if you would like, you can. And that's it. And that's it. They've got you. Butter toast, absolutely. I've got to have the butter toast. And then they bring the butter toast, which is absolutely refined, white, mother's pride, like we used to have when we were kids, and thought it was the most amazing bread you'd ever eaten. Looking, who knows what, but it tastes with this butter toast, because it is buttered. The butter is the grace of the experience of eating the bread. Because then you see you've got the toast and it's the butter. And of course the butter comes from the sacred cow. Cows are sacred. And so, and all of that. And so you're just in heaven. Because you're drinking this elixir of black tea with the white milk. God knows, well, the milk is probably really pretty cool.
And munching in between on the...
Munching on this glorious melted butter toast.
And then it became this expression with your, right? You used that expression. We were laughing about that recently, about the hand movement and that you...
Oh, yeah, all of that. So that, because that's more like, or that turning is what you get a lot, as you will have seen in Indian musicians.
Yes,
right?
yes, I have seen that. Well, I love the expression. I love it. It always makes me smile when, especially when you say it with the Indian accent.
Well, it's kind of, because that is saying something. That's kind of just completing something, or you're really...
The twist of the hand, yeah.
The twist of the hand is really, you're affirming something. But for me, it's like the Vajra sword they use in, the Buddhists use when they're meditating, and they have the bells going, and then they have the Vajra sword, that's all going. And so often when I see them do that, or you see these extraordinary, like Zakir Hussain or whoever it is, playing in a concert, and Hari Prasad playing on the flute. They've obviously all just had butter toast before they start,
Well, we could say that most of your life has been buttered toast.
Most of my life has been completely led, inspired, just informed and then transformed by butter toast.
I love that. Thank you for telling me.
Okay, thank you, Chloe. I hope that was a good surprise. Certainly, and all of you out there, I hope you enjoyed that. All right, on we go. I wanted to share with you Pablo Neruda's Ode to Bread. Beautiful Ode to Bread. Bread, you rise from flour, water, and fire. Dense or light, flattened or round, you duplicate the mother's rounded womb and earth's twice yearly swelling. How simple you are, bread, and how profound. You line up on the baker's powdered trays like silverware or plates or pieces of paper, and suddenly life washes over you. There's the joining of seed and fire, and you're growing all at once like hips, mouths, breasts, mounds of earth, or people's lives. The temperature rises. You're overwhelmed by fullness, the roar of fertility, and suddenly your golden color is fixed. And when your little wombs were seeded, a brown scar laid its burn the length of your two halves, toasted juncture. Now, whole, you are mankind's energy, a miracle often admired, the will to live itself. O bread, familiar to every mouth, we will not kneel before you. Men do no implore unclear gods or obscure angels. We will make our own bread out of sea and soil. We will plant wheat on our earth and the planets. Bread for every mouth, for every person, our daily bread. Because we planted seed and grow it, not for one man, but for all, there will be enough. There will be bread for all the peoples of the earth. and we will also share with one another whatever has the shape and the flavor of bread, the earth itself, beauty and love. All taste like bread and have its shape, the germination of wheat. Everything exists to be shared, to be freely given, to multiply. This is why, bread, if you flee from mankind's houses, if they hide you away or deny you, if the greedy man pimps for you or the rich man takes you over, if the wheat does not yearn for the furrow in the soil, then, bread, we will refuse to pray. Bread, we will refuse to beg. We will fight for you instead, side by side with the others, with everyone who knows hunger. We will go after you in every river and in the air. We will divide the entire earth among ourselves so that you may germinate, and the earth will go forward with us, water, fire, and mankind fighting at our side. Crowned with sheaves of wheat, we will win earth and bread for everyone. Then life itself will have the shape of bread, deep and simple, immeasurable and pure. Every living thing will have its share of soil and life, and the bread we eat each morning, everyone's daily bread, will be hallowed and sacred, because it will have been won by the longest and costliest of human struggles. This earthly victory does not have wings. She wears bread on her shoulders instead. Courageously she soars, setting the world free, like a baker borne aloft on the wind. Gracias, Pablo Neruda. Beautiful ode. Thank you. All right. I might pass on this next one. It's a little longer, so I'm going to save that for another time, maybe. But it's a poem by Darcy Denigan, In the Bakery. You can find that at poetryfoundation.org. It's a wonderful poem about baking, but we have other good ones, so I'll pass on that. But I will have some words from Karen Mann. Again, this is from bread.blog. Musings of a sourdough baker from a decade past. It's past midnight. I'm alone, loading and unloading bread into a deck oven. When I fill the oven with steam, small particles of milled grain deposited on the lip of the oven blow onto my already lightly floured, sweaty brow. There's a good chance my hair has turned gray, having been trapped in a room full of flour all evening. As I settle into my zone, there's a little break between the loading and unloading. Most nights I move rhythmically in a clockless dream until the sun peeks over the northern California horizon and paints the sky with vibrant reds and oranges. I rationalize that only good can come from giving strangers one of the world's most amazing experiences. So during a small pause between loading and unloading the oven, I send a warm baguette through the window into the outside world. Passers-by asking for fresh bread thank me profusely. I started baking bread because I was told every good pastry chef should know how to make bread. What happened next became an obsession with 4 simple ingredients: flour, water, yeast, salt. With bread, the best way to learn is through a series of noted disappointments. Follow the recipe as closely as you'd like or can, but try to fill in the gaps of wonder with your own emotions. My favorite thing to do. Thank you, Karen Mann. Well, speaking of traveling earlier, what kind of bread would you pack for, or have you packed for a voyage, or might you pack for this voyage I'm about to tell you about, for your drive round the equator? Distance, 24,901 miles, with stops for gas. Typhoons, doldrums. Average temperature, 86 degrees, hotter when volcanoes are erupting. Humidity, 86%, often rainy. Anacondas, poison dart frogs, tigers, tarantulas, giant centipedes, giant waterfalls, wild orchids, and Amorphophallus titanum, the world's largest and most immodest flower. What you'll need: sunblock, sunglasses, a straw hat, bug spray, more bug spray, binoculars, bottled water, AC, an umbrella, plenty of sandwiches, and plenty of savoir-faire for your drive round the equator. Yes. Well, obviously, so many great metaphors bread gives us, gives me as a poet at times, maybe gives you in your conversations and musings. This is April 2016, by Central Park, New York City. Freshly made. The sheets tumble out of the dryer like warm loaves of bread. Flower-white towels and pillowcases emerge, toasty on the cheek. All leaven for the waiting bed, for the bright-walled bath, for a fresh cycle of sleeping and dreaming, waking and loving. And also metaphors relating to people. In this case, a dear Basque friend, soul sister of years over in Spain, Ruth Guimera. 40 loaves. The miracle of you, from 4 decades of baking, of you who are ever in the making, in the rising, with the bread of your spirit, your warm heart, your leavened beauty, that daily feeds many, that can, will, as you live forward, as you live and love sunward, feed, fill the senses of multitudes. Yeah. Out to her, love, out to her. Richard Levine has this good poem from his book of poems, A Tide of 100 Mountains. Bread. Each night, in a space he'd make between waking and purpose, my grandfather donned his one suit in our still dark house and drove through Brooklyn's deserted streets following trolley tracks to the bakery. There he'd change into white linen work clothes and cap, and in the absence of women, his hands were both loving, well into dawn and throughout the day, kneading, rolling out, shaping each astonishing moment of yeasty predictability in that windowless world lit by slightly swaying naked bulbs, where the shadows staggered, woozy with the aromatic warmth of the work. Then, the suit and drive again. At our table, graced by a loaf that steamed when we sliced it, softened the butter and leavened the very air we'd breathe, he'd count us blessed. Thank you, Richard Levine. Thank you for that. It's another one I'm going to pass on for now. It's a delightful poem, meaty poem. We could say David Dominguez, Oxtail Stew. It's the title of that one. On tastingtable.com, I found this article, Why White Bread Was Once a Status Symbol. Actually, I don't think I remembered that bit of history, but it says white bread was once seen as a sign of opulence and fruitfulness. You could imagine the pale, puffed-up white bread in its rightful place, sitting amidst draping grapes, fine china, and fortified wine. According to Cook's Country, throughout history, a piece of brown soda bread would seem out of place and was seen as a sign of one's poverty. As commonplace as white bread is today, what made it a bygone symbol of wealth? Well, it implied excess, and it was really more for show that you could afford it, because it says for this class of society, dining was for pleasure, not sustenance. Other breads touted as health foods since were staples for the lower class. They had heartier bread made of peas and rye that tasted quite sour and drab. Funny enough, we now seek out the less refined foods of the past since they're considered the most rustic. If we tried to step into the shoes of a laborer in the 17th century, perhaps we'd consider plain white bread a soft, yeasted delicacy. How about that? Now things change around. Okay. I wanted to mention, by the way, an interesting book, Bread, A Global History by William Rubel, R-U-B-E-L. Here's a Google Books review. Bread is one of our oldest foods. Loaves and rolls have been found in ancient Egyptian tombs, and wheat has been found in pits where human settlements flourished 8,000 years ago. The book Bread is an innovative mix of traditional history, cultural history, travelogue, and cookbook. Rubel begins with the amazing invention of bread approximately 20,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent and ends by speculating on the ways in which cultural forces and advances in biotechnology may influence the development of bread in the 21st century. Interesting read. So, in case you're interested in that, I pass that on to you. I mentioned in the introduction Shakespeare. Well, many years back in time, so I was in university down in Washington, D.C., Georgetown. I had a wonderful, I remember this, learning in a Shakespeare class from an elfin-eared Jesuit named Father Devereux. I swear he was an elf. So he taught us he had a good voice, and he also taught us not only the Shakespeare's plays and other things, and poems, but his songs. And I was thinking, I remember this one song, at least one of the verses, two of the verses of it. It was a lover and his lass. It's from the play As You Like It. But here's the part to share with you. Between the acres of the rye, with a hey and a ho and a hey nonny no and a hey nonny nonny no, those pretty country folks would lie in springtime, in springtime, in springtime, a pretty little ring time, when birds do sing, hey ding-a-ding-a-ding, hey ding-a-ding-a-ding, hey ding-a-ding-a-ding, sweet lovers love the spring. Thank you, William Shakespeare. Yeah, well, and for the spring, in fields of rye. I was looking at an interview with a certified journeyman farrier, blacksmith, a poet, and former Harriet Twitter extraordinaire. His name is Michael Earl Craig. And the reason I was curious about it, because the interviewer asks, what does it take to understand poetry? And it reminds me of the question they said of what does it take to understand toast? When we come upon toast, it's like we have this intuitive understanding of it. But why? We're probably familiar with toast. That's true. But what does toast mean? And how can we understand it? I'm not trying to be cute here. I'm asking seriously. And he said, that poet, I'm glad you used toast as your metaphor. There was a period almost 40 years ago when I believed I could live off toasted 7-grain bread with peanut butter, honey, and banana. That said, let's move from meaning in poetry or a poem to what you get out of a poem. Eating's one thing, but reading a poem, why do that? Let me flesh this out a little. In our bookstore, we have literally heard, quote, poetry saved my life, said by people that believe it, metaphorically but ardently. Poetry isn't for everybody. For some people, it works. But what is working anyway when it comes to a poem? I don't know, John. I honestly don't know what it is about poetry, some of it that, quote, works for or on people. Everything I might say sounds like a cliche. It speaks to them, etc. But maybe that's it. We want to be spoken to. Anyway, what's my point here? My favorite poetry, my favorite art in general, film, music, paintings, whatever, trips up something in my mind. It is always just a few steps out in front, and I'm trying to keep up with it. I'm asked to make leaps, and I don't always know why. It is slightly confusing, but not totally. It functions outside of commercial endeavors, and that is why we let it in, and why it can sometimes, quote, save our lives. Okay, this I thought was very interesting to share with you. Bread poetry, this is called. And initiated by Luke Jerram, Jerram, a collaboration between the artists, poets from around the UK and Hobbs House Bakery. So it says, each Saturday, a different poem will be baked into at least 200 loaves of wild white bread and sold to the public through 5 bakeries across the West Country. 10 poets have been selected, and so on and so on. The poetry is being printed onto small sheets of edible rice paper and baked into the underside of each white loaf. Each Saturday, the Poet of the Week is being celebrated, and for the same price as their standard loaf, the public can read, share, contemplate, and digest this unique artwork. I love that. I just said, imagine cutting into a loaf and discovering a poem inside. Maybe we should do this everywhere. What do you think? Write me a note. Let me know what you think about that. I spoke about the metaphor of, or the idiom we use of casting bread on the waters. And here's a poem of mine from 2004, April. This is for a blessing for a very dear friend of 40 plus years and mentor and father figure, actually. This was on his baptism and conversion at that time to, if I remember correctly, to Anglicanism, Canadian. As you cast your bread upon new waters, now you find new shelter for your faith and soul, safe under the mighty wings and dazzling feathers of June's loving Creator, whose strength you too will trust to soothe any terrors by night and shield any arrows that may fly by day. When the words are said and the ceremonies are done, let the bread of belief you cast upon these bright waters bring you nearer to your deepest self and sacredness. Keep you close to the courage and spirit of your devoted wife and her gracefulness. And fill your following days with the love set upon you, the love that resides in you, the love that circles round you in the open hearts and arms of your family and friends and your fellow men, both well and never met, all seeking the same solace, peace, and hopefulness. Love out to him, my dear friend David, and I'm sure he's still casting beautiful bread on life's waters now in his 90s. Yeah. Well, here's a poem of mine from January of 2017. It was composed at the Ansonia Hotel, New York City. Pain perdu, lost bread. The last 50 years were spent casting mine on life's waters, on many inner and outer seas, rivers, marshes, and streams, freely, generously. And now it has come back, not lost, but returned in a plenitude of loaves of love and kindness, goodwill, invitations to a greater dance, delighted seats at flowing feasts. Right. Now coming into our last musings and sharings for this time together, for this week. This is Helen Minton's poem, Bread. The dough rises in the sun, history of the human race inside it, orgies, famines, Christianity, eras when a man could have his arm chopped off for stealing half a loaf. I punch it down, knead the dark flour into the light, let it bake, then set it on the table beside the knife, learning the power cooks have over others, the pleasure of saying, eat. Thank you, Helena Minton. Thank you. Dylan Thomas, the Welsh poet, on bread breaking. This bread I break. This bread I break was once the oat, this wine upon a foreign tree plunged in its fruit. Man in the day or wine at night laid the crops low, broke the grape's joy. Once in this time wine the summer blood knocked in the flesh that decked the vine. Once in this bread the oat was merry in the wind. Man broke the sun, pulled the wind down. This flesh you break, this blood you let make desolation in the vein. Were oat and grape born of the sensual root and sap, my wine you drink, my bread you snap. Thank you, Dylan Thomas. I'd never read that one before. One of mine, the daily bread. The greatest gift I can give you is the daily bread of this body, the daily fruit of this heart, the daily wine of this mind, the daily spice of this voice, and the daily water of this ever-arising spirit. For Nicole Centeno Hargreaves, March 2019. Spirit of the Rye. Woman of 100 grains, source of the bread of good words and deeds, flowered from the heart. Hardy bread that feeds souls, sons to strangers. Woman of sprouting ways, who thrives through times, places, weathers, and cold winters, bringing fields of gold and green to life and savor. Beautiful woman, long and slender, earth lover, seed sower, nourisher, sun catcher, deep-rooted spirit of the rye. Love out to her. Derek Walcott's poem, as I thought about how often we associate bread with good feelings and good feastings. Derek Walcott, Love After Love. The time will come when With elation, you will greet yourself, arriving at your own door in your own mirror. And each will smile at the other's welcome, saying, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. Thank you, Derek Walcott. Always beautiful, that poem, to read as often as I do. From Playing the Black Piano, collection by Bill Holm, Holm. This is bread soup, an old Icelandic recipe. Start with the square, heavy loaf steamed a whole day in a hot spring until the coarse rye, sugar, yeast grow dense as a black hole of bread. Let it age and dry a little. Then soak the old loaf for a day in warm water flavored with raisins and lemon slices. Boil it until it is thick as molasses. Pour it in a flat white bowl. Ladle a good dollop of whipped cream to melt in its brown belly. This soup is alive as any animal, and the yeast and cream and rye will sing inside you after eating for a long time. David White, he has a poem I've read before for other reasons. It's so beautiful and powerfully metaphorical and biblical, but in a non-religious way to me, and so central to our wildly challenged world and times right now, where so many are so hungry in their hearts and spirits. David White, Loaves and Fishes. This is not the age of information. This is not the age of information. Forget the news and the radio and the blurred screen. This is the time of loaves and fishes. People are hungry, and one good word is bread for 1,000. Thank you, David White. Thank you very much. One good word is bread for 1,000. All right, next to last. One more from Karen Mann from her bread.blog. How to break bread. Prepare the table and set an intention. Thank the sun for providing energy. Thank the heavens for providing water for the grain to grow. Thank the farmer for watching over the grain. Thank the miller for turning the grain into flour. Thank the baker for converting the grain to bread. Thank yourself for setting an intention and creating space. Break bread with those you love or looking to love. Yes, and last for now, things that rhyme. Salt air and summer, warm bread and butter, rosé and laughter, innocence and radiance, journey and memory, poetry and alchemy, nature and rapture, breathing and birthing, living and loving, body and soul. Thank you each and all again, friends, for leading in here, for thinking and feeling in, for sharing this time together, sharing the company of fellow bread lovers. I'd welcome hearing your experience of this show, or how others have touched you that you've heard along the way. And I invite you also to freely share this one out, or the whole Floating Poetry playlist, especially to other bread lovers. If you liked this broadcast, I'd welcome any contribution you might like to make as a thank you. Every donation supports my work making and presenting these programs, ones I create to illuminate and inspire, and I hope I've done that in some way tonight. If you are making a gift, thank you so much. You can do that by Venmo to fivefold, Fivefold, to fivefold at pipeline.com, or by PayPal to the same email. Or you can simply mail a check to me to P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island, 02891. Or contribute through the Donate tab at thepoetorialist.com. Is there a theme you'd like to see a future show on? Let me know. Colin at thepoetisphere.com, Poetisphere.com. Meanwhile, you can hear all the broadcasts online, on YouTube, currently on the Floating Poetry playlist there, ultimately on other leading platforms. These broadcasts come to you through the Poetisphere, the oasis of aliveness I'm guiding, which you can explore as a visitor or join as a subscriber. I encourage you to see what it's about, get a sense of our wonderful community of possibilitarians and the regenesis we're up to there, individually and collectively. And to make joining the Poetisphere even more attractive, I've made month and year-long subscriptions available through the early spring of this year, of 2024. You can have a membership at just $114 a year instead of $190, or $14 monthly instead of $19. You'll see each code to use right on the site through the Join Us tab. Thepoetisphere.com. Yes, so much to discover there, to nourish the inner and outer parts of yourself. You might also enjoy the album now out on most streaming platforms. The title is Oases, O-A-S-E-S, of Regenesis, opening to places of greater aliveness. Have a listen. Meanwhile, I hope you'll lean in here soon again. Until then, dear listeners, carry on with savoring and celebrating all the delights of bread in your days and nights, your breakfasts, lunches, dinners, whether baking it or breaking it with others, appreciating the wonders of it, the simple beauty and bounty of it, the gift of it in our world. And yes, the symbols of it in your conversations, your stories, in our communities and society. May the dough always be rising, yours, mine, everyone's, and everywhere. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.